watched me long before I ever saw him, long before I ever knew someone could want to break a person like this. I remember feeling an inexplicable chill, even on sunny afternoons, as if an unseen presence lurked just outside my field of vision. He studied my routine in a way that made everything feel predetermined. He listened to the rhythm of my steps on cracked sidewalks, memorized the sound of my laughter at school, and even learned the exact time it took for my eyelids to droop every night. That level of detail, so invasive, so calculated, haunted me. This isn't a movie. This isn't exaggerated. I was almost kidnapped, and I believe the only reason I'm alive is that I trusted that faint gut feeling that something wasn't right. It's a feeling I wish I could forget, but every night it crawls back into my mind. I grew up in Brookside, a town of about 12,000 people where everyone knew everyone else's business. Teachers, neighbors, the local diner waitress. Everyone was part of the same comfortable routine. At 17, I was just an ordinary overthinking teen. A mix of textbooks, anxious dreams, and a lonely cat named Orbit who padded silently through the house. Life was predictable, safe, until it wasn't. The first time I noticed something was off, I just brushed it aside. One morning, I awoke to find my bedroom window had been left slightly ajar, even though I was sure I had locked it the night before. I told myself it was just exhaustion or an absent-minded mistake. But then it happened again, and again. My heart would race as I checked each window before bed, as if locking them could somehow seal away the fear that was quietly growing inside me. One night, desperate for proof, I placed a coffee mug on the ledge of my open window. If someone really did tamper with it, the mug would fall and shatter on the floor. The next morning, I found shards of porcelain scattered across my room. The latch was still locked, yet the screen looked disturbed, as if someone had reached out to peer inside, just enough to push it aside. Each small detail carved its way into my mind, slowly building an atmosphere of dread. I also started noticing a car, a dark gray, unmarked sedan, that seemed to be everywhere I went. I would see it idling near the school parking lot, outside the gas station, even parked along the side of our street. At first, I convinced myself it was nothing more than coincidence, but as the days passed, its presence became impossible to ignore. It was as if every step I took was being silently recorded. By this time, my mental state was fragile. I began keeping a detailed journal, timestamps, dates, fragmented license plate numbers, anything that could document the unsettling events. But every time I confided in my friends or my mom, I was met with worried glances and gentle reassurances that it was all in my head. I started questioning myself. Was it just anxiety? Was I overreacting? Then, one night, I received a direct message that shattered every hope of it being a mere illusion. The message was brief, with no username, appearing and disappearing almost as if it were meant to be erased. It said only, "Nice walk today." It was perfectly timed. It came just minutes after I had returned home from my daily route. But what unsettled me even more was that it mentioned details no one else could know. My outfit, my exact location at that time. I realized then that someone was not just watching me, they were tracking me. That night, sleep eluded me entirely. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, unable to shake off the feeling of being observed. When I reached to plug in my phone and discovered the charger had been unplugged from the wall, something I knew I hadn't done, I felt my pulse spike. Then came the sound, a slow, deliberate turning of the doorknob. It wasn't a frantic jolt, it was careful, almost ritualistic. I froze, my body rigid as I listened to that haunting click repeated in the silence. In that paralyzing moment, I saw it. A shadow, perfectly still, lurking under my bedroom door. My mind raced, trying to fathom what it meant. But my throat closed up in terror. I fumbled for my lamp, not to see clearly but to hold it like a weapon, and scrambled toward the window. The coffee mug experiment had already betrayed its warning. Tonight was not a time for tests. I smashed the glass with the lamp, the sound of shattering porcelain mixing with my frantic heartbeat, and clambered out onto the cool, unforgiving pavement. I ran as fast as my bare feet could carry me, the bitter taste of blood mingling with the adrenaline surging through me. I burst into the street, screaming at the top of my lungs. Porch lights flickered on one by one. Neighbors emerged from their homes with fearful eyes. I pounded on a door until someone finally opened, and in that moment of desperate refuge, I heard sirens approaching in the distance. But before I could even pause to catch my breath, I realized with dread that my would-be assailant had vanished into the darkness, leaving behind a trail of questions and raw terror. The police arrived shortly after, their flashing red and blue lights slicing through the night. They combed the area around my house, documenting every fresh pry mark on the back door and collecting fingerprints from the shattered window screen. But nothing conclusive emerged. They found cigarette butts, organized in neat piles behind our garage, and evidence that the screen had been cut flawlessly from the outside. The officers labeled it an attempted burglary, but deep down, I knew it wasn't about stolen belongings. It was about me. He didn't want money or valuables. He was obsessed with me. 2 weeks later, a detective returned to our door. His face was drawn, his eyes heavy with an emotion I couldn't quite place. Disappointment mingled with regret. He told me they had found a locker at a nearby gym. Inside was a spiral notebook, worn at the edges, filled with chilling details. My full name, my school schedule, the exact times my mom would leave for work, even the name of my cat. Each entry was methodical, almost obsessive. I recognized the neat, calculated handwriting from somewhere, and then it hit me. He was someone I encountered every day. He worked nights at the local gas station, a quiet man I had once exchanged a smile with as he handed me change. I had trusted him without question. Now, that trust seemed like a vulnerability I should have guarded. There was never enough concrete evidence to press charges. No confession was obtained. No recordings captured his face or voice. After that, he simply disappeared into the background of our small town, leaving behind an unsettling emptiness and a deep scar on my mind. In the months that followed, I moved away for college. I changed my number, bought new locks, installed security cameras, small measures meant to reassert control over my life. But the internal damage was far more profound. I still double-check every window, even on the sunniest days. I keep my phone charged religiously, wary of any unexplained sign. And at night, when the world is silent, I find it impossible to calm the memory of that slow-turning doorknob and the unblinking shadow beneath it. I've learned that some experiences leave you with little recourse but to adapt. I now sleep with multiple alarms and a nightlight, and I rarely venture out alone after dusk. The feeling of being watched never fully fades. It merely becomes another weight I carry. It's a constant reminder that what happened to me could happen again if I ever let my guard down. And sometimes, in the dead hours just before dawn, I still hear that faint click, the sound of a door gently turning, as if to check if I'm still there. In those moments, I wonder if he's merely lurking in memory, or if, somewhere, his eyes are still fixed on me, waiting for the day I forget to lock my window. Do you think I was his first? Or could I have been the only one who got away? The terror lingers, a reminder that some nightmares refuse to end. If you made it this far, maybe he's not done yet. Subscribe before someone else disappears.